We're going to touch on a few things tonight that move us further in the direction of building lives within a construct of Torah, that will enable us to be successful in all areas of life. So we're going to touch on 5 core character traits tonight. 5 core traits. And we're going to work them, and we're going to make sure we got them and we're comfortable with them so that we can become them, so that we can own them. With the idea being, as we said last week, our goal is to hit a home run in all that we attempt to do, and continue to do so as time goes on, to build exceptional lives, to build happy lives, to build complete and successful lives. That's what we want. The Torah offers us almost endless insight, and it begs us to take it. And somehow we sometimes miss some of it, but it's there in full view. And we're going to touch on a couple of things tonight, and we'll work through it together. Good? Good. We have an interesting little passage when God commands Moses, God commands him to build the tabernacle in the desert. He tells him, this is going to be an unprecedented place, never been done before in human history, where I'm going to direct you and a few others to build something that's going to be a catalyst, a launch point for me, God, to connect directly to you. What are you talking about? Well, I'll tell you what I'm talking about, God says. A lot of people have the impression that God created the world and stayed somewhat removed from it. Other people have the impression that he's not removed, but he's not quite in it. God tells Moshe, not only am I in it, but I want to be connected to each of you directly. So we're going to build a mishkan, a tabernacle, and based in that, I'm going to use that to express myself in each of you. Sounds a little out there, but we'll understand it a little more as we go. What he does is he says, you know how we're going to build this thing? First of all, I'm going to take 2 young men with no experience in craftsmanship or design, but who have an inkling, who have a cheshek, who have an interest for it, and I'm going to inspire them to dig inside and to utilize the skills that are there, just beginning to be expressed in them. And then he says, I want everyone to have a part in this. I want everyone to bring something. I want everyone to donate something. So the word goes out, and people start bringing things. We had some nice things that we took off the hands of the Egyptians as we were leaving. So we have some beautiful things. We have very special silks and cloths and metals and jewels. And once the call goes out, men and women, more women than men, begin bringing these beautiful things to Moshe and to the designers. And there was great crimson cloth, and beautiful stones, and gold and silver and copper, and all kinds of things that people came and donated. In the beginning, when God instructs Moses to do it, he tells him, let all of the Nedivei Lev, all the people who are generous of heart, let all the people who are generous of heart, Nediv Lev, someone who feels generosity in his heart, let all those people bring something. And who knows the story? Some of you guys familiar with the story? All right, people bring, and they bring, and they bring to a point where what happens? God tells them, too much, stop. Who ever heard of such a thing, right? Charity raises too much money. Too much. We don't need any more. At the end of the process, God describes the people not as nidivei lev, generous of heart anymore. They become nidivei ratzon, generous of spirit. Let's see. We leave Egypt as slaves. A slave has nothing, has absolutely no possessions and no control over anything in his or her life. Nothing. Everything about humanhood is stolen from that person. We reclaim our humanity when we leave Egypt. We take some compensation from them, as God described back to Abraham, way back before, hundreds of years before. We take some compensation for the suffering that we suffered on behalf of the Egyptians. And then God calls out to the people and he says, now I want you to give. What do you mean give? How do I know how to give? I never had. This is only a handful of months old. I'm just tasting money. I'm just tasting beautiful possessions. You want me to give up some? Who would do it? We have a hard time teaching people to give in our generation. We were never slaves. We always had something. For 200 and some odd years they had nothing. But somehow, just a handful of months into the game, God makes a call to the people and they bring so much, they're so generous that God tells them, stop, you got too much. Fabulous. Now, in that process, the Jewish people, this nascent, nurturing, tiny, young nation, go from generous of heart to generous of spirit. Now you tell me, what's generous of heart and what's generous of spirit? She had all the answers on Sunday night in RAJE. Come on. It's Tuesday night. It's all right. What do you say? Generous of heart.
I think you use just your heart and spirit you use your mind as well.
You use your mind? Very nice. Good. Let's build on that. When you're generous of heart, what does it mean? Yes?
I think it means like if someone needs something and you feel bad for them, so you just give what they need. But the spirit is like you just want to give.
Fabulous. What's your name? Adam. Fabulous. When you're generous of heart, then giving is something you do. In our community, we have a Bikor Cholim. We have an organization that takes care of the underprivileged. I was involved with it for many years. I was involved with it when it was tiny, when it was a mid-sized organization. Now it's a powerhouse organization, something world-class. It started like you've started these organizations. In the beginning, we used to go to the Bikor Cholim office, to the visiting of the sick office, and we used to spend time there. And we used to make visits to people in pain. We were nidivei lev. We were generous of heart, meaning we, to Adam's point, we did nice things. We went to the Bikor Cholim office. We visited hospitals. Over time, what happened, or what usually happens in this case, we became nidivei ratzon, generous of spirit, generous in the entirety, which means you don't know how to think any other way. That you're not a sap, you're not a pushover, you're not a baby. In fact, it's the opposite. You're so incredibly self-loving and self-confident that you can give to everybody you meet. And you can express something warm and happy to everybody you meet. I'm going to give you an example, silly example. I walked into a new coffee shop today on Madison Avenue in 26th, 27th Street. And I ordered a cup of coffee. A group of young Asian guys just opened the store. So, coffee was okay, pretty good. It was good. I walked over afterwards, before I left. When I ordered the coffee, I asked them when they opened the store. They said a month ago. I wished them great success. I looked at me. after I had the cup of coffee, there was a long line. I walked over and I said, "Good luck, the coffee was delicious." I thought the man was going to fall on the floor. He was shocked. I was thrilled. I reached out to another human being, no obligation to do so, nothing to gain. I don't know that I'll ever be in that coffee shop again. It's not my hood. I walked into the office building that we were having the meeting in before this coffee break. And the guy at the front desk, I was looking down, I asked for the floor where I was going, and he kept looking down. I said, "You know, it's a beautiful building. It must be really nice to work here." Somebody's talking to me? Somebody's actually talking to me. And he gave me the floor, and I went up, and when I came down, I thanked him. It's nothing, but it's everything. It's everything. And this is who we want to be. And it's not an expression of hunger or weakness or wanting. It's an expression of great power. When you can just arbitrarily, ongoing, give love and good cheer to anyone and everyone. Now, very nice to do it to strangers, right? Very nice. But it's very, very important and essential, and we're obligated to give it to friends, and to neighbors, and to family members. This is who we should be. There was a very interesting study done a number of years ago, where they asked a number of grade school children, when you think of daddy or mommy, what picture comes to mind? 4th, 5th grader. What picture comes to mind? Huh?
Wedding photo. Their wedding photo.
No. What? How do you picture their face? Good. How do you picture their face?
Angry.
Many were angry. Many were with the cell phone plugged to their head. And the minority, what a crime. The minority were mommy or daddy with a smile. Now, think about it. If any of us checked out, moved to Alaska or the Arctic Circle, how would people remember us? Would they remember us with a smile? I don't know. It'd be great if they did. So, cornerstone element in Judaism is nidivut, generosity. It's in everything. On the simplest level, it's in how I greet another human being. In America, we think about what we say after we've said it. You know, people say, there's all kinds of silly expressions here. Oh, I say what I think. No, I say what I think. I say what's on my mind. I have no filter. Hold the camera for a minute. The person who says that is an imbecile. The person who says that is unintelligent. The Jewish person is obligated to think about what he or she is about to say before she says it, while she's saying it, and after he said it. Before, during, and after. Because in contrast to the Western perspective, words are stronger than sticks or stones. Words will build another human being. Words will do the opposite. I'm in a different stage in my life than most of you are. People come to me and tell me, you told me something 30 years ago. It had such and such an impact. It changed my life in this respect or that respect. What are you talking about? I don't even remember the conversation. No, but I do. So, We're here to talk about building lives of success, fulfillment, happiness, successful careers, successful relationships. Midot, character traits of the utmost fineness are essential to that. Number one, become a nadiv ratzon, a generous of spirit. How do you do it? The way we did it way back then in the desert, by doing it. There's another core tenet in Judaism. Some of you may remember this, Ephraim may remember this, Rabbi Ephraim from many years ago. In Judaism, we're about na'aseh v'nishma, or ready, fire, aim. No.
Yeah, I know
Look at
that.
that, you remember this. What does ready, fire, aim mean? What does na'aseh v'nishma? Do and then understand. In Judaism, we don't pontificate. We don't stand on the side and get everything figured out before we act. If we want to start keeping Shabbos, for example, we start. People tell me, well, I'm not ready to keep Shabbos yet because I don't understand all of Shabbat. Guess what? I'm keeping Shabbos since I'm 14, and I don't understand all of Shabbat. So what? I'm never going to understand it all. None of us are. Isn't that great? But in Judaism, we don't wait till we have the whole picture cooked. We jump in. We do. And we learn as we go. Whether it's to deal with eating kosher, whether it's to deal with the holidays, whether it's to deal with Shabbat, whether it's to deal with generosity, do it. By doing it, you will understand it. Study it, do it. Do it, first study. Points for tonight. Happy together. We want to become Nedivei Ratzon, not Nedivei Lev. In other words, it's nice to do acts of kindness. It's nice. It's noteworthy. It's praiseworthy. It's much nicer. It speaks much more. It's a life builder if you become generous through and through. Start with your siblings. Try with your parents. You might actually enjoy it. Neighbors, friends, kind word. Who will be ultimately the primary beneficiary of this generosity of spirit? Who? Beautiful. Beautiful. And how will that work? How would that work?
Practice it, it becomes a habit.
And what would that mean on a daily practical basis? What would it mean? How would your life be different? Yeah, why?
Easily.
And you're going to make yourself happier. You're going to be generous with yourself too. You're going to be more complimentary to yourself. You're going to be more forgiving to yourself. You're going to laugh more with yourself. The generosity that's going to start in being focused outwardly, right? 'Cause it's always easier to give to others than it is to give to me. The generosity that's going to start going to him and to her and to him will bubble back and go to me. And over time, I'm going to teach myself how to be good to myself and generous to myself. And that's a grand slam. Good? Sure? Questions? Let's go. You got it? You got it? No question. Yes.
You said there were 5 core principles now.
Yeah, well, this is just the first.
Oh.
Yeah, we just started. They want to finish me up. We just started. No, we just started. Yeah. You good with this one? All right, beautiful, excellent. Anybody else? Let's go. You good? All right, good. Next, let's take the next one. We have during the same experience that the Jews had in the desert, another expression is used and coined. And in fact, I counted it a number of years ago. I don't remember exactly how many times. I think it's 28. It might be 27. But this expression is said somewhere around 27, 28 times in the same episode when God is mandating that Moshe build the tabernacle with the Jewish people helping him. Let me give you context. What happens? A lot of people come and they bring their gifts, as we've described. Other people come and volunteer their time. I'm going to be a weaver. I'm going to be a metal worker. I'm going to be a builder. And they dedicate their time. And the Torah says something mind-boggling that you can also have and should have. And that is, Ubelev kol chacham lev natati chokhmah. Who's good in Hebrew?
And in the heart of every smart person's heart, I will give knowledge or intellect.
Fabulous. So explain that to me. First of all, say it one more time so everybody can hear you.
And in the heart of every smart person's heart, I will give knowledge.
Yeah. In the heart of every smart person's heart, I'll give knowledge. What do you want to do with that? 28 times! What do you want to do with that? What do you say?
Maybe it means that it's not, there's like the superficial knowledge that we all know, but I think it's like a deeper knowledge of knowing yourself and who you are as a person inside once. Because you were saying how people were donating their time, so maybe it's them learning more about who they are as a person and their gifts and bringing that out.
Okay, let's talk about it. What is the term chacham or smart? What does chacham mean? We all want to be chacham. To have knowledge. What?
Experience more.
Okay, great.
Something you know to be true rather than having been told.
Something that you know to be true rather than having been told. Let's see. What's the difference? Critical difference between a chacham and a mumche? Mumche is an expert. What is the difference, guys? Give it to me in English. What's the difference?
Maybe a mumche is somebody who's more robotic than everybody.
Excellent. Beautiful. A mumche is a specialist, right? Who's more robotic. Excellent. What is a chacham? A chacham is the following, and it's what we all want, and we can all have. A chacham is someone who knows a lot about a lot of different things and pieces those parts of knowledge together to form his or her worldview. So, an airline pilot would be a specialist in flying a plane. A plumber would be a specialist. An accountant is a specialist. Excellent. That's the way some people make a living. Great. But a chacham is what we want to aspire to be. In fact, last week's Torah reading, right? Joseph tells Pharaoh, you need a chacham. What does Pharaoh tell him? You're right. I need a chacham to save my empire. And he also has to be a few other things. He has to be navon, and he has to fear God. We'll talk about those in a little while. But chacham means the following. We touched on this Sunday night in a different context. Chacham means that I immerse myself deeply in knowledge. That I master knowledge. Starting with Torah knowledge. Nothing more important. But I can't be limited to that either. But I master knowledge. I study Chumash. I study the prophets. I study the oral law. I study halakha, Jewish law. I study Shelot and Tshuvot, which is one of the most exciting parts of Jewish law, which is open to everybody today like never before. What is Shelot and Tshuvot? Responsa. It's when two core elements of halakha, of Jewish law, bump into each other. And now you got to figure out what trumps what. It's so much fun. It's so intellectually stimulating. This journey of acquiring chokhmah or wisdom is open to everybody. It's democratic. The Torah in this case, 3,000 years ago said, Lo b'shamayim hi. It's not in the heavens. Lo me'evet hayam. It's not at the other side of the ocean. It's not at a breach. And it's not reserved to anybody. In other religions, you have the clergy and you have everybody else. The clergy are privy to the great knowledge, and everybody else remains ignorant. In Judaism, we flatten the pyramid. Everybody should be as knowledgeable as the rabbi. Everybody. Whether you become a rabbi or not. Everybody should have the goal to know as much as he knows. That's how you build your life. So, ubelev kol chacham lev natati chokhmah. And in the heart of everyone who has wisdom in his heart, I will give more wisdom. God is making a promise in that case. What is he promising? Very curiously structured sentence. What is he promising? In the heart of everyone who has wisdom in his heart, I will give wisdom. What is he promising?
If you start, he'll help you.
Fabulous. Once you start, he will help you. And it goes something like this. And we touched on it in RAJE, again, briefly in a different context the other night. It goes something like this. And some of you have heard me talk about this, and I feel very, 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 very strongly about it. Every day, you have to get smarter. Every day, you have to amass new knowledge. And I tell people, even if it's 10 minutes, 10 minutes, take 10 minutes. Everybody has 10 minutes a day, and learn new Torah-related knowledge. At the end of a year, you will have 3,650 minutes of more knowledge in you that define you, that elevate you, that make you more self-loving, more fulfilled, more interesting, more exalted, more kadosh, more sanctified. That is what we want. That is the first step to becoming a chacham. A person who ends up with such a breadth of wisdom that he or she can then tie things together on a level that's remarkable and almost unparalleled to navigate a fabulous life. Now, person A dedicates 10 minutes a day. At the end of a year, he has 3,650 minutes. Person B dedicates nothing. Everybody's got 10 minutes. Person A is on a higher level, is brighter, is sharper, is more self-fulfilled, is happier, is more interesting, and has a certain energy that only knowledge brings. The second element to that is that not only do we have to amass new knowledge, but we have to amass more complex knowledge. So as you learn more, what you learn should be harder. So start by reading the Chumash. Just read it. Then go to one of the commentaries. Then go to a more difficult commentary. Then move on to the prophets. Then move on to the later prophets. And keep going. It's forever. It's your legacy. If you lose interest in that particular cadre of information, go to something else. You could spend your life just studying the books in this room, and you wouldn't finish them. And you'd be much happier than most people. So, and to somebody's point in Judah, when you're on this track, and you're learning every day, and you're growing every day with a book. By the way, guys, book. Classes are great. What we're doing tonight is great. But nothing is better than opening the book and breaking your head. I want to tell you a quick story. When we were 17, one of the rabbis in the synagogue told us listen guys, every month, go buy a Jewish book. Once a month. I'm 17. I'm having a good time. What am I going to do with the Jewish book? Go buy it. Put it on your shelf. Okay, I put it on my shelf. A few years later, I went to Israel to learn. The rabbi suggested, you know what, while you're in Israel, try to buy a book once a week. What am I going to do with it? Okay, every week or two, we used to go to Mass Shadim on Friday morning, and we'd buy books. By the time we left, we were shipping home tens of cartons of books. What ended up happening? Very interesting. This rabbi, with that seemingly simple advice, built a generation of men and women who have hundreds of books in their homes, who cherish books and cherish knowledge. Because after the book sat on the shelf for a couple of years, I took it off. And I started to read it. It's great. And then I started to read a second. And then what I found was I was in 10 books at once. Because that's what we do as the Jewish people. Knowledge and us gravitate to each other very strongly. And if you don't want it, it's not that you're losing out, but you're cheating yourself. I had a mentor in high school who was a huge player in my life, I was having a great time in high school. I was the only Syrian kid in the honor class in the Yeshiva Fellowship at the time. There weren't too many Syrians there, and not too many in the better classes. So I pretty much did what I wanted. One person, Dr. Joel Gorsky, used to pick out the Syrian that he thought had some potential and beat our brains in until he put us on the track that he wanted. And he did the same thing. You really? Wow, fantastic. All right. Did he pick you out also?
No, I'm one of those. I'm not serious.
All right. He felt bad for the Syrians. He had to do something now. So he pulled me out and he just pounded me. I was supposed to go to Brandeis. He talked me out of it. Thank God. I went to Israel and I learned, and then I came back and went to school at NYU. But his influence changed my life. One night, many years later, I walked him home from Beth Torah, one of the shuls in the community, to his apartment, and I just walked him in, just out of respect to him. And I looked around his apartment, and everywhere you turned, there were books. Everywhere. On the sofa, and on the chair, and on the table, and on the mantle, and on the kitchen table. Everywhere. It was spectacular. It was decades ago, and I can picture it almost exactly until this day. This man had and has an extraordinary love of knowledge. So, second important point for tonight is get smart and stay smart. Get smart and then get smarter. You will be more interested. There will be more of you to love. There will be more to share with another. There will be a different level of charisma about you. You'll be more fulfilled. Now, in fact, in this time and generation, anybody can access any information anywhere. I have thousands and thousands of Jewish books on my phone. I used to take a suitcase of books, literally, a suitcase of books. On my honeymoon, I took a suitcase of clothes and a suitcase of books and a suitcase of food. That's what we did. No place to eat. That's what we do. Now, I take my smartphone. Mind-boggling. You live at the greatest generation. So, point number 2, get smart, get smarter, get smarter, start building libraries, any language you want, any level you want, move around, try some of this, learn some of that. Classes are fabulous, but you've got to train yourselves to get in front of a book with a pencil and a highlighter and break your heads. Good? Okay? Questions, thoughts? Yeah? Okay so far? Yeah.
Do you believe this is only important for Torah or
Excellent.
other
I
sciences?
think it's important for Torah and other things. Maimonides highlighted the importance of science and mathematics. He felt that they were essential for understanding Torah more. But I want to say very strongly that we have a unique inheritance. And let's build a wealth of knowledge in who we are. Let's also do other stuff, absolutely. All of the world's knowledge comes from God. All of it. So let's learn as much as we can about as much as we can. But let our main focus certainly is young people building your lives. Let it be in massing Torah. But certainly it should be broad and comprehensive. Okay. When some of you may remember, point 3, there was a nuclear reactor explosion in Japan. Yeah? At the time, the state of Israel sent scientists, medics, army personnel, food, medicine, yada, yada, yada. Good? When they did that, it was called X. We're not going to answer X for a minute. When the state of Israel did that, it was called X. A few years later, there was a major hurricane or like that in Haiti. Israel sent medics, field hospitals, medicine, and so on to the island of Haiti. From a Torah point of view, each of those missions would be classified differently. What is the first one called? And what is the second one called? First one. Huh?
With all your spirit?
With all?
Spirit?
Good, but give me more. Give me a word. One word. Ratzon? Almost. Not quite. Almost. Good. You're right. It is an act of generosity. Good. What is it? I'm gonna make it a little more clear. Huh? Beautiful. Which one is chesed? One of them is chesed. Chesed is an act of kindness, but we're going to define it more clearly. Which one? One is loving kindness. They sent a delegation to Japan. They sent a delegation to Haiti. Which one is chesed and why? More. We didn't talk about this.
First one.
I have more today. Huh?
First one.
The first one, why?
Because there's less precedence that they don't know what they're stepping into. They don't know the kind of reaction that they'll have from the nations and the gratitude they'll get from it. A lot of times when you do something, you have more incentive to do it again.
In fact, it's the second one, is chesed, but for the reasons you said. Let's go. Let's talk about it. The first one is called tzedek, tzedakah, righteousness. When Israel sends field hospitals and doctors and medicine to Japan, it's called tzedakah. When they do the same for Haiti, it's called chesed. We need to get involved in both. Let's see. When is something called tzedakah? Erica.
When you have something
And you have an obligation. It's an expectation. Good. Israel and Japan have diplomatic relations. If we have diplomatic relations, or we have human relations, and we can do something, from a Torah point of view, it's expected that we'll do it. If you can do it, you gotta do it. That's righteousness. That's tzedakah. When you do something where there's no expectation of you, you don't have a relationship, that's called chesed. You're not zakuk. You're not connected. There's no lines of connection. So, talk to me then for a minute. If each of us wants to be a person of tzedakah, a tzaddik, what does it mean? What do we got to do?
We have to have obligations.
Excellent. And how do we define those obligations? What do you say? How do we define them?
Define your responsibility.
Excellent. You define your responsibilities. How do you do it? Huh? How do you do it? No, before that. You're right, but before that.
How you feel you owe us.
No?
Promises?
Huh?
Promises?
No?
Kindness?
No? Before that. Not kindness is chesed. Yes?
You have to form relationships first?
No? Yeah. This is going to be called upon because you have the relationship. Right? Good. But what demands of you? It goes like this. You are obligated to do what you have the skill set to do. Good? So to your point. If there's a relationship and you can do something, you must do it. So if the state of Israel, as an example, put a shingle up on their door that says, we have excellent medical expertise and can help in time of emergency. To your point, if there's a relationship with another country, they have the obligation from a tzedakah point of view, they have an obligation to do something. If they don't do something based on Jewish law, they have failed. Unreal. Unreal. You know how to teach a class? Find the time. Okay, you're not allowed to hurt yourself. You're not allowed to hurt your children. I used to go to the Beit Juhuro office many years ago, and I saw young fathers there on a Wednesday night, and I sent them home. I said, wait a second. Who's doing the homework with your kids? No. Don't come and try to help a stranger. Help your own children first. Assuming that that's getting done, and you have a relationship with another party, and you can do something, then you have an obligation to do it. If you can't do it, the world doesn't sit on your shoulders, but you have an obligation to make every effort to find somebody to replace you. So, core element number 3. We're going to wrap up in 8 minutes. Core element number 3. Righteousness. Tzedakah. Which means, know yourself. Know what you can do. Value yourself. None of that Western thing where you can list all the things you can't do and very few of the things you can do. Be proud. Be honest. List the things you can do. Know who you are. And when people call on you, understand that you have a responsibility. By the way, who benefits from the expression of your responsibility? Who's the prime beneficiary? You are. Why? Why?
You value yourself more.
You value yourself more and?
Comes back around.
Comes back around, true. What else? What happens while you're doing it? It makes you stronger, and you come more into you. Every time I give a class, I understand myself better. I understand my dreams and my hopes more. Because this is something that I know how to do. So, much easier not to do it, but I know how to do it. And there's a need to do it. And with God's help, I'm incredible. Every time I do it, I'm in a different place. And hopefully other people are. So, the third element is tzedek, righteousness. Understand with whom you have relationships. Understand when you're called upon to act, and act. Then, beyond that, if you want to help people with whom you have no relationship, do it. But that's not called righteousness anymore. That's called loving kindness. Interestingly, today, a lot of what we do, we call chesed or loving kindness, but it ain't that. It really is righteousness. And from a Torah point of view, the obligation to be righteous is primary to the obligation to do loving kindness. Be generous, spirit, ongoing. To reach out and express kindness to someone with whom I have no relationship, very nice. But wait a second. Make sure that you're generous. That's more important. Make sure that you're righteous. Righteous is tough. You're all going to build great career successes, God willing. People are going to call you up. I'd like your advice. Who wants to sit with somebody and give advice? You made it. You did it. You were blessed. You have something to offer. Righteousness means you have responsibility. So, we talked about generosity. We talked about chokhmah or wisdom. We talked about tzedek or righteousness. And we talked about chesed, loving kindness. Any questions on righteousness or loving kindness? Cool? Yeah? Right there? Everybody okay? Good. Last point. We have a concept in Judaism that he who judges, she who judges, will be judged. Essentially, the Torah demands, pretty much, that we never judge. We never judge another person. Now, if another person is doing something wrong, we have a Torah obligation to call him out. Tochecha, rebuke, is a Torah obligation. But to judge that person, absolutely never. What do you mean? Bad guy, criminal, thief, murderer. You can't judge another person. You can condemn his actions, but you can't go further than that. You can call him out, and if you have a relationship with him going back up to tzedakah, you have to call him out, but you can never judge him. Now, I'm going to wrap up with this. Why do you believe? We'll never really know the whys, but sometimes we can sort of postulate a why, because it makes us understand something a little better. Why do you believe that the Torah would prohibit somebody from judging another human being?
If you don't judge them, you try to understand their point of view.
Excellent. You try to understand their point of view. What else? Yes.
You can never be in their position to understand.
You can never be in their position, right? So you can't really weigh in on something. What else? What's the main point? Yeah.
I think most people, they're in their own position, and it's not because it's not their fault. A lot of people get into a certain position in life, and you can't control that. So if they don't make the right decision, you can't really be blamed.
And that's why it all starts with generosity. If you're generous enough, for example, to go visit people in the hospital, right? That's an expression of generosity. That's it. You'll see people in the hospital, right? You'll see people in the hospital, and you'll see other people in pain. And all the time you're learning to stop judging. Because it could be a child in the hospital. He won't do anything to be here. He won't eat anything bad to be here. He's just here. So generosity starts to condition you to stop judging. And the biggest beneficiary, the most important beneficiary of no judging. Let me ask a quick question. How many times today, let's do it this way. Who judged himself or herself 5 or more times today? Today, right? One second, I take it. 5 or more times today. Today! Me too. And I'm teaching class. I gotta get over it, right? The main beneficiary of the lack of judging is us. The reason, I believe, one of the reasons that we can ascribe, we'll never know the reasons, we can only maybe get a glimpse into the purpose of something. Maybe the purpose, I think more than maybe, one of the purposes that the Torah mandated that a person can't judge is because God knew that the human being would mess up a lot in his life by constantly judging or critiquing himself. So, Torah said, stop judging the stranger, stop judging your parent, stop judging your sibling, stop judging your friend, with the idea that over time, you just stop judging. America is the most judgmental society on the planet. It's the greatest country in the world, but it's the most judgmental society on the planet. You judge a president in 100 days. Imagine. We elect a man to a position, maybe some other lady. We elect a person to a position, the most complex, difficult position in the world, and we assume that in 100 days, a little over 3 months, he's going to master it. The first 100 days. It is such a disgrace that we do something like this. It's such a disgrace to ourselves, to our children. America is very much a Christian country, and as we said, it's a great country. And one of the upshots of being a very Christian country is it's very, very judgmental. And we have to fight against that. Not because it's wrong to judge others. It is wrong to judge others. That's true. But the main reason is that we're going to end up bringing that sledgehammer on us. And that lasts the way. So, whenever we start judging another person, stop it. Whenever we start judging ourselves, catch it. It's not going to happen in a week or a month or a year. But over time, if you're super aware of it, and you're becoming a person who's generous of spirit, who understands and is growing with knowledge every day, so his day is filled with new inspiration and intellectual stimulation, who understands what his responsibilities are and is engaging the world righteously, who every so often engages the world beyond what's expected in loving kindness, the opportunities to judge start to lessen. The impetus to judge starts to go away. And over time you do it less and less and less. Will we ever stop? Probably not. Until there's an overarching change in the society we live in. But no society is perfect. So I don't know if it's going to change that completely. But we can change. And it's essential that we do it. If we stop judging others, we'll stop judging our lifetime partner. We'll stop judging our children. More important than anything else, we'll stop judging ourselves. And that will give us a level of self-love and empowerment, virtually nothing else. So, we touched on 5 core Torah concepts. To be generous in spirit. In other words, practice it, force it, live it. Even if you don't fully get it, just do it. Just do it. By doing it, it will become you. Next, learn every day. Go to the library. 10 minutes a day. 10 minutes a day. And even though we can get everything on a Kindle or a smartphone today, buy books. Buy them. They make a house different. They make an apartment. They give an apartment a soul and a definition and a warmth. It's great. Understand who you are and what God gave you the capability to do. And do it. When you're called, do it. Stand up. Every so often, reach beyond your universe and touch someone who you can help even though you have no relationship and no responsibility, like Israel and Hayden. And finally, work hard every day. Don't judge the stranger. Don't judge the friend. Don't judge the parent. Don't judge the sibling. Don't judge the boyfriend or girlfriend. Just everyone over time. The generosity that we started with in point 1, that generosity of spirit, coupled with wisdom, righteousness, kindness, and a real awareness about stopping to judge, will really enable you to stop judging. Life is it. And then you're walking we have, let me just close with this, we have this expression of being kadosh. God tells us in one of the weekly segments that we should be kadosh. And we mistakenly translate that to holy. So if you translate kadosh to holy, we don't know what kadosh means, we don't know what holy means. What does kadosh mean? Separate. Kadosh means that you're living in this world with both feet on the ground, but you've carved out a reality of yourself that's altogether different. That's all has a different glow. It has a greater possibility, a greater horizon. It's probably a happier horizon. That's Kiddushin. That's what we want. And as we grow in Torah, and as we consume ourselves with growth, every day just grow. Just be more generous, just be brighter, be smarter, just grow. Grow. I want to give you a quick little quiz. I'm sorry, I want to read a quick little quiz. Ready? Give me something that you've grown in the last 30 days. Let me know something you've grown in. Yeah?
I say the morality every morning.
Thank you. A test. She took something that we read in our class and she's practicing it. Super. Give me somebody else, something you can quantify as an area of growth.
Gratefulness.
Huh? Gratefulness? Good. Awesome. Give me one or two things that you can quantify as where you stuck your neck out and you grew in the last 30 days. Hard, right? I'm sure you all have. That's easy to come to mind. But imagine if you were getting a little more generous every couple of days or every week, and you could quantify that. I didn't joke around with the guy in the coffee shop 4 months ago. I really didn't. I wasn't in the head to do it. I wasn't there yet. It needed another slug of generosity. Okay? Does it mean a ton? Not a ton, but it means something. And what you want to be able to do is look back on the last 30 days of your life and say, I grew in my generosity. I grew in my righteousness. I grew in my kindness. I grew in my intellectual growth and understanding of these things. You want to be able to quantify something. And then when we say, thank you, God, for giving me another X amount of time on the planet, we say they bless them, thank you, God, for bringing me another year, for bringing me to Passover again, for bringing me to this Hanukkah again, whatever the holiday is. You're saying it with a real heart because you're using your time productively. You're really growing. Your life is rich. So this is what we have. We are blessed to be members of the most exclusive, spectacular club on earth. God is sitting there wanting us to grow, like any parent does. Just almost desperate for us to grow, desperate for us to become more. We just have to open the faucet. And the final point is, when you're doing all this, have a great year. The word simcha, what does simcha mean?
Joy.
Joy. Good. Beautiful. What's mentioned more often in the Torah? The word for joy, which is simcha, or the word Shabbat. Shabbat is the cornerstone of our relationship with God. Which word do you think would be mentioned?
Simcha.
I get it right. Reality is, simcha is mentioned more. And the truth is, Torah, above all else, is a roadmap to joy. Really, truly. It's yours for the taking. Just go. Start. Good. Questions, thoughts? Yes.
I was gonna ask if you can define judge because
Yeah, I was gonna ask this.
with the regular English definition for judge, it's impossible to never judge.
Well, how do you, good, excellent question. How do you define judge?
To build an opinion, to have an opinion or form a conclusion of, let's say, anything. Like for example, when you got good coffee, you would assume the guy is a good coffee maker. that is a judgment of sorts. It's not necessarily negative.
But I didn't tell him you're a good coffee maker.
Of course not.
You're right.
But it could have went through your head. I'm not saying you directly judged him, but certain judgments are subconscious.
You're 1,000% right. You're overwhelming this subconscious. So what we have to do, and it's cliched in America, but it's a very real thing, we have to work very hard to separate the person from the action. Good and bad. Good and bad. This is a complex caring on some level. Everybody cares about somebody. Everybody loves somebody. Everybody's done some good stuff. Everybody has some levels of individual pain in their life. So put everybody in a box where they have enough of all the things that you know life to be. We're judging them as all things. Now just look at what they do.
Again, judging them how? Negatively?
Negatively or positively?
Forming any opinion of
All
them?
positively. In Judaism, you're not even supposed to judge a person positively. How's that?
So you're not allowed to form opinions about people like
You shouldn't.
that? Only about objects?
You should. Ideally.
How about their actions?
Actions, you have to be careful with actions as well, because most actions that people do, we don't understand. We don't know what's going on. We don't know what's going on.
But you could say the action is bad. It is bad to harm other
I would only do that if I'm at a point in my life where I can really, in my mind and heart, keep the actions separate from the person. Until then, I will suspend all judgments, altogether. Let me give you a quick example. Somebody came to me just as an example, said, they have this ongoing issue with their girlfriend. This person who they contend and hope to spend the rest of their life with. But this is the issue that keeps coming up. She does X, he responds with Y. And this is what she does, and he can't get past that response, and he can't take it, what she's doing. But he loves her. And he thinks she's his forever love. Right? So I'll tell the person, for 30 days, don't respond. That's dishonest. But it bothers me. But it's wrong. 30 days, don't think about it, and don't react. And start to train yourself slowly to get away from this type of judging. Parents with a child, same thing. You know what? The kid is trampling on your values. And Mr. Jones or Mr. Cohen, you're hurt by it because your son is doing this, and you know, or you think part of the reason he's doing it is to hurt you. Fine. Don't react for 60 days. Just let him do it. Just let him do it. Because after a point, the judging feeds itself, and there's no more honesty in the conversation. There's very little in the relationship. So, yes, you're right. When we judge the action, we're a hair's breadth away from judging the person. So you have to know yourself. And if you're not in a place yet where you can stop it, then just don't do it altogether. And live without it for a while. The world won't change that much. And your life will. Yeah.
Just to build on that question on understanding what is judgment, within Torah and Judaism, there is a lot of sort of labeling of what is a rasha, or what is a good person, a righteous person. And it says that in the Mishnah you have to choose a good neighbor and a good friend, as opposed to a bad one. So like, right, so if we're not sort of judging someone in our minds, even just for the purpose to protect ourselves, not the purpose to put them down. So, I mean, like, how do you...
Good, excellent.
How do you
So
organize
today, generally speaking, we say, Rasha means an evil person, right? Today we say that there really, virtually isn't any such thing as a Rasha anymore, based on the classic Jewish definition.
There was still that idea of
There
judging
was
that person
absolutely
as a
that,
rasha.
yes, there was that. That comes at a point when someone is a very specific state of mind, where he's thinking, when we would judge a person as a rasha, for example, it would be a subjective, emotionally infused judgment. right, generally?
Yeah.
And that's why it's, because the total criteria is purely objective. It is purely objective. Now, if I can grow to a point where my judgment criteria becomes completely devoid of emotion and absolutely unequivocally objective, fine. There are objective criteria, you're 100% right, in the Torah, for all kinds of different people. But the criteria is objective. You do this, you don't do that, you do that, you don't do that. Got it. But if it's my heart, if it's my pain, if it's my disillusionment, if it's my whatever, infused in that, it's not objective anymore, and I'm disqualified.
Is there any difference between judgment and appeal?
And
Appeal.
appeasement?
Opinion.
Opinion.
Like, you cannot have no opinion, right?
Why not? Why do I have to have an opinion?
Like, it's your feeling.
So I would suggest that for the next 12 months, you all don't express an opinion about it.
But isn't that an opinion itself? Not reacting, it's a reaction itself.
But let's do it anyway.
I think
It's a reaction. But if we want to, sometimes, Maimonides talks about this, right? Goes from one extreme to the other, and they end up with So sometimes, let's just, again, I don't know you. You may be the most objective, non-judgmental person in the room. Right? Maybe. Judging you. I would say that most of us have fallen into a trap of being very, very judgmental. And a lot of it comes from emotion and not good hard facts. And for that reason, we should be happy for judging. The world is not going to change. What's your name?
What if it does come from hard facts? For example, I had a close friend who got I got concerned for his health. And I sat down with him at TV, ironically. And I
Deep fried chicken, right?
it was sushi and there was a lot of it. But I told him, you're getting very much overweight and I'm worried for your health. And a judgment had to be made there. Of course it is.
If you were
I
looking
judge
at
that he needs the help.
if you were looking down on him or were angry at him, then you have no doubt to judge. If you were expressing an objective fact with the intention of helping him, then you did the right thing. But very often, if somebody's getting fat and they get sick, we're getting pretty annoyed at them. It's bothering us. If it starts to bother us, then we have a problem.
I think judgment is just when you completely wrong gauge either someone is good or bad. Because you can perceive if someone makes a mistake, you can recognize that.
Respond to the action, objectively. It's not good or bad, it just happened.
So objectivity is good.
Objectivity is the key.
Well, now we can take it. Objective numbers.
How do you train yourself to not judge people with your emotions?
Just shut it down. I'm telling you, go cold turkey. It's very interesting. Maimonides, when he's talking about the laws of repentance, he creates an order of 5 things. And the first thing he says is, become aware of what you're doing, and then just stop cold turkey. Just stop.
Just shut your mind, your thoughts, and just switch to something else.
And get one of your dear friends who you trust, who's in the class ideally, and tell her or him, if ever you see me going in a judgment thing, go like this or go like this. Give me this.
What about the directive that are right for judgment?
Okay, I I completely agree with that, but we're so far from that, most of us. Just stay, yeah.
Two things. Just to review, the 5 principles we were talking about were,
Generosity of spirit, which is holistic, complete, in everything. Chokhmah, wisdom, which means I get smart, I stay smart, and that knowledge is in many of the key areas of life, primarily in Torah-related areas, where I continue to grow to a point where I'm sought out for my knowledge, and I'm very enriched by it, because I can connect together so many different areas of knowledge and make decisions and establish a life direction that's very, very sophisticated and well-informed. Number 2. Number 3, to be righteous, which means know who you are and know then what you must do on this planet to help others. And that may change from time to time, but you gotta know who you are. And knowing who I am means I write down the 10 really fabulous things about me. I'm not afraid to do that, because if you don't do that, you can't be righteous. The next one was chesed, which is when I'm not called out because I have a relationship. When I have no relationship, I don't have a Torah obligation. It's a nice thing to do, and it further refines the human being, and we should do it. But let's first articulate our tzedek, our tzedakah, our righteousness. Let's become masters of that, and then let's infuse the chesed, the loving kindness, to parties who are unrelated to me, outside of my universe, every so often. And the last one is, let's work hard to counterbalance the influences of an otherwise super great society, the United States of America. Let's just work to counterbalance one of the challenges of the society and go cold turkey on no judgment. The primary focus being to stop judging ourselves.
so how are chesed and the kindness of spirit different? They're both sort of what...
Generosity is how I wake up in the morning. It's how I say hello to a person. It's how I approach a business conversation. It's infused in everything I think. It's generous. It's generosity. It's not, loving kindness is non-demanding, non-relationship oriented, and extra.
It sounds like they're... Okay, so generosity is more essential.
Generosity is absolutely essential. Loving kindness is not. I'm going to stop. Okay, anybody else have any questions? I'll hang around for another few minutes. I apologize for going over. You guys are great. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you.